is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington for the vacationing Ted Koppel, Sam Donaldson.
Tonight we'll explore the story of two men, one dead, the other alive. One now a martyr and symbol of opposition to the government, the other the leader of the government and bitter foe of his murdered opponent. The country is the Philippines. The men are Benigno Aquino and Ferdinand Marcos. And though President Marcos denies any complicity in the assassination of opposition leader Aquino, Marcos's rule may never be the same. In fact, Aquino's murder could hasten its end. For Aquino's murder at the Manila Airport yesterday was no isolated crime of passion, but an act calculated to affect the political life and structure of the Philippines. Aquino had been living in the United States for the past 3 years, but he decided to go home, even though President Marcos warned him not to come, even though friends warned him he faced death. He left his wife and 5 children in Newton, Massachusetts, and his wife Corazon and 12-year-old daughter Christina are with us now from our bureau in Boston. Mrs. Aquino, your husband's friends warned him that he faced grave danger if he went home. Did he discuss that with you, and what did the two of you say about it?
Well, I think my husband being in political life, I think the two of us were always aware, of the dangers involved. And having gone through a detention of 7 years and a half, and my husband had, gone on a hunger strike in 1975. And at that time, he told me that he had surrendered himself to the Lord. And he told me after 1975, all the years will be bonus years, and we should be grateful for them.
So when he left on August 13th and said goodbye to you, the two of you understood that he might face grave danger, imprisonment, and even death.
Well, we thought imprisonment would be it. I myself believed, that would be the worst thing we could expect. We were hoping for a house arrest, but it seemed to us that maybe he would be put back in the detention center. Never did I think, that this would happen.
Now, President Marcos warned him not to come, said he would not be admitted to the country, in fact said the reason was an assassination plot against your husband had been uncovered. What did your husband say about that?
Well, as early as July 19, after my husband had filed an application for a travel document to return home, he was told by the Philippine Consulate General, that he should not return home because the government had uncovered assassination plots against him. Because of this, my husband sent a telegram to President Marcos asking him that he, reverse the order of the Consul General and allow him to return home. My husband said that all he wanted to do was return home to effect a national reconciliation, and that he had a clear conscience and he was not afraid of any possible assassination plots.
Did he ever get a reply from President Marcos?
It was not President Marcos, but the Defense Minister, Juan Ponce Enrile, who sent my husband a telegram. And we received this on August 2nd, and the telegram said for my husband to delay his arrival in Manila by 30 days at least, so that they could neutralize the alleged assassins.
All right, with all of this as the background, Mrs. Aquino, why did your husband go home?
Well, my husband felt that while he was strong and healthy, and while he believed Marcos was still in good health, that he could ask President Marcos to please talk to him, and he wanted to plead with Mr. Marcos to restore the democratic processes in our country. My husband believed that only Marcos, with his authority and power, could do so. So it was so imperative that he go home while it was still possible for the two of them to talk.
Well, why did he think he would have any influence over President Marcos? Mr. Marcos hated your husband, and your husband certainly disliked the president.
Well, my husband felt that here he was living, in Boston for the past 3 years, living in a free country, and yet willing to give all this up and risk another jail term He thought that would prove his sincerity to the president, and he felt if the two of them could communicate directly with each other, since they both loved the Philippines, then maybe the two of them could work out something to restore democracy to our country.
Mrs. Aquino, who do you think murdered your husband?
I would not like to say any definite now. I would like to return home and talk to the people there. I have just seen the television shots. Let me just say this. I thought that the security given my husband was really inadequate. There were only 3 soldiers whom I saw on television as coming up the plane to take my husband. When we were still in the Philippines and when my husband was in the detention center, whenever he would go to, either the Supreme Court or the military tribunal, there would be at least 20 to 30 security men, guarding him and really looking out for his security. So this really was quite a strange thing to see happen. Only 3 people going up there to take him.
Well, now, the government says your husband was murdered by someone who had slipped in and put on the uniform of an airport worker and had come very close with a single pistol. You saw the television pictures of that man lying there. Does that seem probable?
Let me say this. My relatives told me that it was very difficult to get to the airport. You had to get tickets, and even where they were, they were still so very far away from where the airplane was. It just doesn't seem possible. I don't know how that assassin could have possibly gotten to where he was, if he were just alone.
Mrs. Aquino, I want to talk to you a little bit more and also to your daughter, Christina, and we'll do that if you'll just please stand by when we return in just a moment.
All right.
Tell us about your husband. You were married, what, 28 years ago? What kind of a man was he?
Well, for me, he was the best possible. He was the best possible man for me. I have never met any other man that would have wanted to have as a husband and to have lived with all of these 28 years.
A lot of people said he was flamboyant, was he?
Well, maybe he was, but to me, he was my ideal man. And he made me happy. And not only that, if I am a better person today, I think I owe that to my husband.
Your daughter, Christina, is there with you, is she not?
Yes, she is.
Christina, what kind of a dad was Benigno Aquino?
My dad was caring, and he may not have been there with us for that much, but the time we spent together really means a lot to me and to my family.
Well, a lot of busy people aren't there all the time. Were you aware of the type of work he was doing? What did you think of that work?
Yes, I was aware of the work he was doing, and I felt proud of him that he was able to do that.
Do you know the difference between terms such as freedom, despotism, tyranny, and freedom?
I know freedom and tyranny. I don't know that despotism or whatever, but...
What did your father say to you about freedom and tyranny and the difference?
Freedom was something that we should cherish, and he never really talked about tyranny all that much to me, but freedom, we were able to have it here.
You know he was in jail for a long time in the Philippines?
Yes, and I was only 2 years old when he was put in jail.
And then he came to the United States. He had open heart surgery, and that made him well, and he went to Massachusetts, and he taught. What about those years, the last 3 years?
They were very happy times for all of us, and it was a time that I really got to know my father, and it was also a time that we were happy.
Did the two of you talk just before he left a few days ago to go back to Manila?
Well, he called us from Taipei, and he just told me that to hurry home because the prison where he was lonely and sad.
Christina, what are you going to do with your life? Do you know yet?
No, I don't, and I somehow want to be a lawyer, but I'm not really sure of that right now.
Do you think you would want to go back to the Philippines, live in the United States, or some other country?
I loved it here in the United States, but I know now that the Philippines is my country. It's the country where we should live.
Mrs. Aquino, you and your family are going back to the Philippines tomorrow. I think you take a plane early in the morning.
Yes, that's right.
You've talked to your friends and relatives there. What do they tell you about the atmosphere? What are you going to find? Do you know?
Well, this morning I got a call from my sister, and you see, my husband was lying in state in our home, and she told me that if it were all right with me, they would like to transfer him to a bigger place, maybe one of the churches in our neighborhood. You see, there have been so many people coming to see my husband. They counted something like 1,500 people per hour, and the people had said that they had waited in line for something close to 4 hours.
What do you think of that?
Well, I am just very grateful for all these people, and I think, I hope this means that my husband did not die in vain.
Mrs. Aquino, do you fear that you may be in danger if you return to the Philippines?
I don't think so, and I do not worry about those things. I feel that my place should be in the Philippines now, and I am eager to be home to see my husband and to arrange for the funeral.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Aquino, Christina, for being with us tonight from Boston.
Thank you.